Week 17 is complete. So here we are, 1 week away from ending the regular season. Let's get to the games of this week. We have week 17 here. The Jaguars defeat the Rams in prime time by 1 point. You see McCoy threw one pass, got injured. And despite that, McCoy does get the credit for the victory, even though it was rookie Nick Foles with 287 yards, 4 TDs, 1 interception being the reason for their victory. DeMarco Murray there with 90 yards, and Slayton decided to lose a yard for him. Then you have Andrew Luck with 271 yards, 2 TDs, 1 interception. Hightower, 58 yards rushing and 2 TDs. So this was a game the Rams needed to win, go at 7-8, trying to get to 8-8 with the slimmest chance of making the postseason. But the Jaguars decided, sorry, bro, you're done. You're done. So Rams are out of the playoffs. Moving on, we have the Bears beating the Giants. So the Bears, with this victory, actually moved to the number 1 seed in the NFL. We see Jason Campbell with 184 yards, 3 TDs, 1 interception, with Ingram with 124 yards, Glenn Coffey with 33. Campbell also got a rushing touchdown in there as well. Whereas Palmer got 238 yards, a TD. Matthews only 43 yards. We see Quick with a lot of those receiving yards. So this was a game the Giants wanted to go and really move into the wild card, but they are still in the wild card picture, but they have a slim chance. The Bears actually moved to number 1 seed, so they're 10-6 now. They do face the Packers next week, who are also 10-6. So the winner of that one will be the winner of the division and possibly the number 1 team in the league. Here we have the New England Patriots just demolishing the Bills. We see 3 touchdown passes, 339 yards for Brady. Christian Ponder with 263 yards and 2 interceptions. Normally, Kareem gets like 80 yards, 100 yards. He only gets 17 here. We see there's not really an impressive running game by the Patriots, but it was just a slugfest by Brady to Kelly. You see 147 yards, 3 TDs to Malcolm Kelly. And that's the game for them. So Patriots are solidly in first place. I expect them to bench their starters this last game because they've already clinched number 1, and they will be the number 1 seed in the entire NFL. There's no NFC team that can even match them. Then you've got the Commanders falling to the Saints. Another game where if the Commanders had won, they would have likely been in one of the playoff seeds, like probably the 7th seed, but they lose to the Saints. We see Tim Tebow with 247 yards, 2 TDs, Tomlinson with 84 yards and a touchdown, Mendenhall with a touchdown, and then you got Vic with only 197 yards, a TD. He also rushed one in. They have 100 yards combined between him and Ivory, but it wasn't good enough to get the win. They are still in the playoff hunt, but they need some losses from, I think it's the Falcons and the Panthers, who currently hold the 6th and 7th seed. Then we have Bill Cowher's Colts defeating the Ravens. This was a game where the Ravens were out early with the lead, and slowly but surely the Colts were able to fight their way back in, and unfortunately Chris Johnson, if I remember, I believe he's injured and he's out for the rest of the year. So even though the Colts win the game, which ties them for the division, they are without Chris Johnson. So this is going to be interesting to see how much Brady Quinn can really carry this Colts team, which I'm doubtful. They play the Houston Texans next week, who are also 10-6. So the winner of that game is going to win the division. We see Kaepernick with 300 yards, Rice with 42. Good game from both teams, but it was the Colts who do get the victory. Then we have the worst team in the league, the Kansas City Chiefs. They are worse now than Jacksonville, and they don't even have their number 1 overall pick. We see Josh Freeman with 363 yards, 3 TDs, 43 rushing yards for Stewart. Meanwhile, the number 8th overall pick, Richardson, gets 56 yards. Now, Whedon has 44 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. I decided to bench him for Kevin O'Connell, and I thought, okay, let's see how he does. Only 50% completion, but 2 touchdowns, 74 yards. Now, I will be starting Kevin O'Connell the last game of the season. And the reason for that is O'Connell used to play for the Titans, and he actually made the playoffs, was a solid quarterback. And I was realizing, I'm trying to invest in Whedon because he's the rookie, and he's also 28. So let's get him some playing time. Let's get him in now. O'Connell is 27, and he's got a better overall. He's had more career success. So I'm kind of like, well, maybe heading into next year, if I decide to keep Tony Sperano as the Chiefs head coach, maybe they give a real opportunity for O'Connell next year because he does have success winning, and Whedon clearly does not. That 4-12 record is anything but desired, especially when you give up a first-round pick for someone like Whedon. Then you've got the Eagles beating the Buccaneers. So this major loss for Tampa Bay, who was the number one team in the NFC for quite a while. Now the Bears have that title, and the Eagles are right there with them. We see 212 yards from McNabb, 3 TDs, an interception. Gore with 99 yards. Gabbert with only 159 yards, which has really been most of his season. I mean, he has not been slugging it. I mean, he's 2,900 yards this season. But 29 TDs, 17 interceptions, not bad. I mean, maybe a little bit much on the interceptions. 57% completion. It really has been McFadden who is having I guess he's about 154 yards away from claiming the 2,000-yard rusher. 17 touchdowns on his year, and only 84 yards receiving. But anyway, the point is, Eagles win, Buccaneers lose. Tampa Bay faces the Falcons next week, and Falcons are 9-7, so they're right one game behind the Buccaneers. I don't know if they lose that game if all of a sudden they become the second seed in the NFC South. Speaking of the Falcons, we see them defeat the Dolphins. Both were 8-8. Both teams are trying to get into the playoffs. Both teams having some challenges this season, but Newton with 242 yards, 4 TDs, 1 interception is no match for Manning's 297 yards, 4 touchdowns, no turnovers. McGahee with 88 yards, Forte with 96 yards. We see Fitzgerald getting 3 touchdowns and 104 yards with Braylon Edwards right behind him at 90. Then we have the Jets, who are just having a really rough year. Todd Haley is almost definitely fired. He has the number one quarterback, Alex Smith, 97 overall, best quarterback in the league. And he's got the best running back, or one of the best running backs in the league. I think maybe Chris Johnson passed him up. But 94 overall, Portis, Harvin, Welker, and they can't get it done. But because of this victory, the Panthers slide into, I think, the 7th seed in the playoffs. So this is a huge win for them. Huge loss for the Jets. I'm shocked. The Jets have so much talent. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. I don't know if they're going to be dismantled by their new coach and rebuild. I don't know. I mean, right now, I think I might have a question for everybody. If you are Alex Smith and you've been on the Jets for this long and you're the best quarterback, do you demand a trade? Do you want out? I might have to make that decision coming up. That's, interesting choice. Then we've got the Seattle Seahawks, who triumph over the Lions by 3 points. This was kind of a loser game. It didn't really matter that the outcome was. Lynch does get over 100 yards. Manning, I guess, gets over 100 yards, which is not very impressive. 200 for Tannehill, but 2 turnovers. Yeah, you got Reggie Bush there with 68 yards, a touchdown. The fullback, Marisic, gets a touchdown. Nothing really spectacular in that game. Then the shocking game was the Chargers, who were trying to stay competitive with the Patriots for maybe the number 1 seed, failed to get their 2-point conversion to win the game over the Broncos. And because of that, they end up... they never did. Okay. It was they didn't have a 2-point conversion issue. They just lost by 1 point. I think it was they were up 20-14, and then Bradford led the drive that led to Bradford's 3rd touchdown to win the game. So the Broncos, who I thought were going to can Sam Bradford at the end of the year, end up making the playoffs. And right now, if they win and the Chargers lose, Broncos could be winning the division. So interesting record for them. Bradford, a modest game. There's Bradford with 3 TDs. A.J. Green, a superstar there, 143 yards. Rodgers with a turnover, no touchdowns. Beanie Wells with 2 touchdowns. Barber went in, but he got injured. So that was a downside for the Chargers. Then Brock Osweiler in his first career start loses 17-31 to the playoff contending Texans. Tavares Jackson, 213, 1 touchdown. We see 3 touchdowns, 1 for Benson, 1 for Jackson, 1 for Spiller, spreading the ball around there. Nothing really spectacular, but spreading the ball around with the receiving. Matt Spaeth gets 97 yards for the Bengals, but it's the 3 interceptions from Osweiler, who very first play just chucked the ball down the field and just gets intercepted, and you're just like, unbelievable. So Osweiler has a cannon for an arm. I'm trying to see if he could be the Joe Flacco of the Bengals, whereas John Harbaugh had Flacco in Baltimore. I thought, could Osweiler be John Harbaugh's Flacco? Doesn't look like it. Does not look like it. So here we are, Cowboys, trying not to be 7-10 again this year. Fall to 6-10 now. So the best record they could have is 7-10. This was, again, another loser game that neither team has a chance for the playoffs. But 4 touchdowns to 2 touchdowns is the difference. You see Ryan, 4 touchdowns, having a solid performance here in garbage week, I guess you can call it, where none of the game matters. Peterson, 87 yards, a touchdown. Wilson, 161 yards. Yes, he did get hurt for like a play or two. So Webb did come in there through 17 yards. Packers defeat the Vikings. So this allows the Packers to contend for not only first place in the NFC North, but also first place in the league. Because if they're able to beat Chicago next week, they will be first place in the league, pending Tampa, pending San Francisco. Not sure how the tiebreaker plays out. But you see RG3 with 165 yards. Nothing impressive there. And Stafford with 176 yards. Nothing dynamic about this game other than just the Packers get the win and the Vikings are out of the playoff contention. Now, my Cleveland Browns. I thought they were going to find a way to screw this game up, and they could have, but they didn't. Browns on Sunday Night Football come away with a victory over the Steelers to solidify the AFC North and potentially be, and right now they're the 3rd seed. They could end up being the 2nd seed in the league. Terrell Pryor with 193 yards, 2 touchdowns. Felix Jones, 105 yards and a touchdown. We see Big Ben with only 123 yards. The Browns defense really gave it to him. So Browns having their best season. Because of this, the Browns are now they were the last team in my 11 years to have never made the playoffs. So as of this season, every team I have played with has made the playoffs at least once. Steelers are still in the wild card hunt, but I mean, ideally 8-8 is not really what they wanted. And then a shocking game here. I thought the 49ers were going to win and clinch the 1st seed in the NFC, but 3 interceptions by Breeze, and then I threw Clemens in late in the game because the Cardinals were just rolling. So Dalton, you see, 257 yards, 3 TDs, outperforming Breeze and the 49ers. Troy Williamson with 222 receiving yards, 2 TDs. Williamson having a pretty solid year. The Cardinals have had a slew of just fantastic receivers. They had Calvin Johnson. They had, who was the other one? There's some other, Charles Rogers? No. Charles Rogers went to Detroit. It was Calvin Johnson Jr. I don't remember. Troy Williamson was up there. They had some others. It wasn't Bolden. Jeez. Maybe I'll look up in my history and see who they were. But anyway, Cardinals win on Monday Night Football. So that brings us to our stat leaders. Manning is 300 yards away from 5,000 yards. The top 5 have mostly been the same the entire year. Rodgers, Newton, Brady, McNabb. Touchdown leaders, Brady by a touchdown over Manning. Newton over there with 40. We can see the interception leaders, Whedon at the top, and now he's out. We're going to be benching him the last week. Then you look at rushing, it's McFadden, 154 yards away from 2,000, followed by Ryan Matthews, Portis, Johnson, and Peterson, even though Johnson is out. So with that, he's still at 24 yards, very fantastic season. And then you basically the same top people, except for Bradshaw there, who pops up with 17 touchdowns. Greg Jennings, Calvin Johnson Jr., all coming in here with the top. Ted Ginn, same top 5 as the entire season has been for a while. Calvin Johnson, of course, 22 TDs. Hard to stop that. Then you have Kendricks, Michael Huff now with some tackles. Eric Weddle, Branch, Whitner. Sacks, Derek Morgan now supersedes Ray Edwards. Interceptions, you got Roll, Sensabaugh, Miller, Crescent Butler, and TJ Ward now up there with tying for 6. We see rounding up the top 10 there, 6 interceptions. As for rankings, Patriots, Falcons are number 2 in defense. Bears, Texans, Eagles, top defenses. And then we have the bottom of the league. So we have 6 teams clinched playoffs for the AFC, and then you have several teams in the hunt for that last 7th seed, and then you have 5 teams clinching for the NFC. So how is it going to play out? Right, Patriots, they're solidified. They are number 1. Then you got the Chargers and the Browns fighting for that 2nd seed. If Chargers lose, there's a chance Denver could pass up the Chargers. The Texans and Colts are battling this week, so whoever wins that one is going to move up to 11-5. Now, in the standings, the only teams that can make it are Pittsburgh or Miami, I believe. Well, maybe the Jets and Raiders could make the playoffs. I think they would need... Well, let's see. No, they can't. Because their division is 1-4, 1-4. So even if they go 8-9 and the Dolphins go 8-9, Dolphins have that tiebreaker of 4-2 in the division. So it's going to be Miami or Pittsburgh, depending on how this last week plays out. Then for the NFC, we see all these teams are 10-6. So all these teams have the chance to be number 1. So that makes week 18 valuable. Then you got the Falcons in the mix, and they're trying to get, if they win and beat the Tampa Bay, I don't know if they can get the division or not if they're head-to-head. It looks like Tampa Bay might have the tiebreaker anyways, but they still want to win to hold off Carolina, Washington, New York Giants, because all 3 of these teams are trying to get those last 2 playoff spots, and then I don't think there's any chance for the Vikings, Saints, Rams, or Cardinals, even though they have a 7-9 record, which isn't terrible, still not the best. Then we look at the worst teams in the league. You got Chiefs, who have their number 1 pick to the Falcons. Ravens are 2nd. Jaguars, Lions, Bengals, and so forth. You want to take a little preview of the draft class. This is the 2013 class, so the Eric Fischel, Jokel, Jordan. Quarterbacks were Geno Smith. And I'm actually going to probably raise Matt Barkley to be more of a valuable quarterback. He might go in the 1st round. I think he's a projected 1-2 in Madden right now, however the draft class was made. But Barkley was the one that was supposed to be a top 3 quarterback in 2012. He decided to go back to USC for another year, which if he didn't do that, he probably would have had a better start to his career as opposed to being a 4th round, 98th overall pick to the Eagles. We will see if I decide to take him somewhere higher in this draft. But hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe and like if you want more content. I didn't have any highlight games for the past week or 2. I am just trying to get this season done so we can get to the playoffs and then the off season. But again, if you want more like gameplay content, let me know. I do plan on having gameplay content for the playoffs because that's just fun to see the gameplay as it plays out. But thanks for watching, and I'll stay tuned for the next video.